My name is Abigail, and I'm 34, sitting in my Austin condo, the city's skyline glittering through the window like a testament to everything I've built. I founded HarperTech, a cybersecurity startup, and sold it for $4.7 million last year, a number that still feels surreal. I was the girl from Houston's suburbs who turned late-night coding sessions into a tech empire. Success was supposed to be my shield, proof I'd risen above my family's chaos. But betrayal has a way of finding you, no matter how high you climb. My parents, Diane and Robert Carter, didn't just reject me. They tried to take everything I'd earned. It started 16 years ago at our kitchen table, when my mother's words cut deeper than I could have imagined. I thought I'd built a life they couldn't touch, a fortress of my own making. But family has a way of slipping through the cracks, doesn't it? They didn't just break my heart, they came for my legacy. This isn't just my story. It's for anyone who's felt the sting of being cast aside by the people who should have loved them most. Stick with me because this betrayal runs deep. 16 years ago I was 18, sitting at our chipped Formica kitchen table in Houston, the air thick with tension. My mother, Diane, stood over me, her face twisted in a way I'd never seen. "Get out," she snapped, her voice like a whip. "And don't bother coming back." My hands shook as I grabbed my keys, the jingle loud in the silence. I walked out, heart pounding, each step heavier than the last. That moment broke me, shattered the naive girl who thought family was forever. But it also built me. I vowed never to return, never to let their rejection define me. Outside, the humid Texas night pressed against my skin as I slid into my beat-up Corolla. I didn't know where I was going, only that I couldn't stay. My mother's words echoed, sharp and final, severing the ties I'd clung to. I was alone, but that solitude sparked something fierce, a determination to prove her wrong. That night, I drove away from their house, from their control, and into a future I'd have to forge myself. My parents, Diane and Robert Carter, always favored my younger sister, Natalie. Growing up, it was subtle but constant. Natalie got the praise, the extra slice of cake, the new clothes, while I got lectures about trying harder. I thought earning a full ride to UT Austin for computer science would change things, make them see me. Didn't. By 18, I was used to their indifference, but nothing prepared me for that night at the kitchen table. Years later, after HarperTech's sale, I got a certified letter from them. It wasn't congratulations. It was a disinheritance notice. "Abigail's success is luck, not merit," it read, dismissing my sleepless nights, my sacrifices, my code that secured millions of users. Their signatures, "Regards, Diane and Robert Carter," felt like a knife, cold and impersonal, as if I were a stranger, not their daughter. They claimed Natalie deserved their estate because she stayed loyal. Loyal to what? Their favoritism. I'd built HarperTech from nothing, while Natalie coasted on their handouts. That letter wasn't just rejection. It was a declaration that I'd never been enough for them. If you've ever been cast aside by those who should love you, this story's for you. I know the pain of family turning their backs, of feeling like you're fighting alone. Share your betrayal in the comments. Let's build a Texas-strong community, where we lift each other up. My parents didn't stop at disowning me. They sued me, claiming I owed them a cut of HarperTech's sale because they supported me growing up. Supported. They gave me a roof, sure, but never belief, never encouragement. Their lawsuit was a desperate grab at my success, a final attempt to control me. This journey isn't just about that night at the kitchen table. It's about what came after. How I fought back, not with anger, but with resilience. They thought they could break me again, but I was no longer that 18-year-old girl. I'd built a life they couldn't touch, and I was ready to defend it. Stay tuned, because this revenge story isn't about vengeance. It's about rising above. Growing up in Houston during the 1990s, our home was a modest ranch-style house, its beige paint peeling under the relentless Texas sun. The front yard had a single scraggly oak, and the back was a patchy square of grass where I'd escaped the noise inside. My mother, Diane, was a nurse, her scrubs always crisp despite long shifts at the hospital. My father, Robert, a mechanic, came home smelling of motor oil, his hands stained with the day's work. They were hard-working, proud people, but their world revolved around my younger sister, Natalie. She was the golden child, born 3 years after me, with bright curls and a giggle that seemed to charm everyone. I was Abigail, the quiet older sibling, always on the outside looking in. While Natalie basked in their attention, I found solace in the backyard, lying on an old blanket under a sky full of Texas stars. Those nights were my sanctuary, where the vastness of the universe made my family's indifference feel smaller. I'd trace the Big Dipper, whispering dreams of a future where I'd matter. Their focus on Natalie wasn't just preference. It was a wall I couldn't climb. Every praise she got, every hug, felt like a reminder I wasn't enough. But under those stars I started to believe I could be. I was 10 years old when the truth hit me like a slap. It was a summer family barbecue, the kind where neighbors crowded our backyard, the air thick with charcoal smoke and laughter. I was helping carry lemonade pitchers, trying to be useful, when I overheard my mother talking to Mrs. Dawson from next door. "Natalie's our star," Diane said, her voice warm with pride. "Abigail. She's the spare, you know, just in case." The word spare lodged in my chest like a splinter. I froze, the pitcher trembling in my hands, then bolted to the garage. Tears fell as I hid behind Dad's toolbox, the smell of grease grounding me. I wasn't their daughter in that moment. I was an afterthought, a backup plan. I promised myself I'd prove her wrong, that I'd be more than the spare. That night, alone in the dark, I felt the weight of their rejection settle into my bones. But it also lit a fire. I'd show them I was worth something, even if they couldn't see it. That promise became my anchor, the first step toward a life they couldn't define. The favoritism wasn't subtle. It was woven into every part of our lives. Natalie got new dresses from the mall, bright and frilly, while I wore thrift store finds, faded jeans and hand-me-down sweaters. When Natalie brought home a B+ on her report card, Mom and Dad celebrated with steak dinners, their faces glowing as they toasted her effort. My straight A's. Barely a nod. "Keep it up," Dad would mumble, already turning back to Natalie's chatter. Her dance recitals were sacred. Mom and Dad never missed one, clapping loudly as she twirled in her sparkly costumes. My soccer regionals. They had to work or forgot the date. I'd scan the bleachers, hoping, only to see empty seats. Once I scored the winning goal, my team cheering wildly. But when I got home, Natalie was showing off a new ballet routine, and my victory didn't even get a mention. The contrast was stark. Natalie's every move was a masterpiece. Mine were invisible. It taught me early that love in our house was conditional, measured by some scale I could never balance. Each slight, each missed game, each ignored achievement chipped away at my sense of worth, but it also fueled my determination to escape their shadow. That sense of being less became a weight I carried everywhere. I internalized it, believing I had to work twice as hard to be seen. While Natalie played, I retreated to the backyard, my blanket spread under the stars. I'd lie there for hours tracing constellations, Orion, Cassiopeia, Ursa Major, whispering to myself that I was enough, even when I didn't believe it. Those nights were my rebellion, my refusal to let their neglect define me. I dreamed of escape, of a life where I'd build something so big they'd have to notice. I'd imagine myself in a city like Austin, far from Houston's suffocating suburbs, creating a world where I belonged. The stars were my witnesses, silent but constant, reminding me there was more out there. I'd tell myself stories of a future where I wasn't the spare, where my name, Abigail, meant something. Those moments, alone with the night sky, planted the seeds of resilience. They taught me to find strength in myself when my family offered none. Every whispered promise under those Texas stars was a step toward the woman I'd become, one who'd rise above their rejection and claim her own worth. Grandma Margaret's cottage in Galveston was my refuge, a weathered clapboard house just a block from the Gulf, where the salty air clung to everything and the scent of her pecan pie filled the rooms. She was my mother's mother, but nothing like Diane. Warm where Mom was cold, steady where Mom was sharp. Margaret ran a diner for 30 years, serving fishermen and truckers with a smile that could thaw the iciest mood. I'd spend summers with her, escaping Houston's suffocating suburbs. At her kitchen table, scarred from years of coffee mugs and storytelling, she'd share tales of her diner days, how she'd faced down rowdy drunks with nothing but a raised eyebrow and a firm word. "Grit's what gets you through, Abigail," she'd say, her voice like gravel smoothed by the sea. "You've got it, even if you don't know it yet." She taught me more than how to pour a perfect cup of coffee or charm a grumpy customer. Margaret showed me how to keep a ledger, her pencil moving with precision as she tracked every penny from the diner. "Numbers don't lie," she'd tell me, "but people do. Trust your own math." I was 12 when she first sat me down with her old ledger books, teaching me to balance accounts, to see patterns in the chaos of income and expenses. It wasn't just about money, it was about control, about owning your story in a world that tried to write it for you. While my parents poured their love into Natalie, Margaret saw me. She'd catch me staring out at the Gulf, lost in thoughts of not being enough, and say, "Your light scares people who live in the dark, child. Don't dim it for anyone." Those words sank deep, rooting themselves in my heart. At night, we'd sit on her porch, the humid breeze carrying the rhythm of crashing waves, and she'd tell me stories of women who built lives from nothing, waitresses who saved for their own businesses, single mothers who outsmarted hard times. I soaked it all up, her belief in me a lifeline in a family that treated me like an afterthought. Margaret didn't just give me love. She gave me tools, grit, logic, and a stubborn faith in my own worth. When I doubted myself, she'd point to the stars over the Gulf and say, "You're made of the same stuff, Abigail. Don't let anyone tell you different." Her cottage was where I learned to dream beyond my parents' neglect, where I first imagined a life bigger than their small expectations. Those summers shaped me, not just into the woman who'd build Harpertech, but into someone who could survive the betrayal waiting down the road. Margaret's lessons weren't soft. They were forged in the heat of a life hard lived, and they became my armor. That night at the kitchen table, when my mother snapped, "Get out! Don't bother coming back," I didn't go far. I drove straight to Galveston, my hands shaking on the wheel, tears blurring the road. Margaret was waiting on her porch, as if she'd known I was coming. The Gulf roared in the background, a steady pulse against the chaos in my heart. She didn't ask what happened. She just pulled me into a hug, her arms smelling of flower and lavender. Inside, she handed me a leather-bound journal, its pages blank but heavy with possibility. "Write your own story, child," she said, her eyes fierce with conviction. "Don't let them steal your pen." We sat on her porch, the waves crashing like a heartbeat, and I poured out the pain. Mom's words, Dad's silence, the weight of being unwanted. Margaret listened, her face calm but her jaw tight. "They're wrong about you," she said simply. "You're not their spare. You're the whole damn story." That journal became my sanctuary, where I scribbled my hurt, my anger, my dreams. Margaret's belief was a spark in the dark, reminding me I could rebuild. She didn't sugarcoat my pain. She gave me space to feel it and the tools to rise above it. That night, under Galveston's starry sky, I found hope again, fragile but fierce, fueled by the one person who'd always seen me. When Margaret died 2 years later, it was like losing the sun. I was 20, scraping by at UT Austin when the news came. Her will left me $15,000 and her jewelry. Simple pieces like her mother's pearl earrings and a silver locket with a photo of us at the diner. It wasn't much by some standards, but to me it was everything, a lifeline to keep me afloat through college. When my mother found out, her resentment boiled over. "I'm her daughter, I deserved that," Diane hissed over the phone, her voice dripping with entitlement. "You don't even need it." I was stunned. Margaret had left Diane nothing, likely because of years of estrangement and Diane's dismissal of her mother's hard-earned wisdom. I refused to share the inheritance, not out of greed, but because it was Margaret's final gift to me, her belief in my future. Diane's anger only grew, her words sharp as she accused me of stealing what was rightfully hers. That call cemented the rift. My mother saw Margaret's love for me as a betrayal, just as she saw my existence as a burden. The money helped me finish my degree debt-free, and the jewelry was a reminder of Margaret's faith, worn close to my heart as I built Harpertech. Diane's bitterness couldn't touch that legacy. Margaret's belief was my shield when my family tried to break me. Her words, grit, light, numbers, echoed through every challenge. When I was coding Harpertech's first prototype in a cramped dorm room, I'd hear her say, "Trust your own math." When my parents sued me after the $4.7 million sale, claiming I owed them for raising me, I remembered her telling me not to dim my light for anyone. That journal she gave me, I filled it with plans, not just pain, sketches of algorithms, dreams of a company that would protect people's data, a future where I'd never be the spare. Margaret didn't just save me that night in Galveston. She gave me the strength to face a lifetime of battles. Her cottage, her stories, her unwavering faith taught me I was enough, even when my parents' rejection screamed otherwise. If you've ever had someone believe in you when no one else did, you know that kind of love can carry you through anything. Margaret's voice still guides me, a lighthouse in the storm of betrayal. Her lessons built the woman who didn't just survive, but thrived, turning pain into power and loss into legacy. At 18, I walked onto the University of Texas at Austin campus with a full scholarship, my heart still bruised from my mother's words. "Get out. Don't bother coming back." That scholarship was my lifeline, earned through late nights studying in my childhood bedroom, ignoring the sound of my parents fawning over Natalie. UT was a new world, vibrant and sprawling, where I could finally breathe. I met Claire, my roommate, a no-nonsense biology major from Dallas who'd blast country music and drag me to food truck festivals. She became my anchor, the sister I never had. Then there was Ethan, a lanky coder from San Antonio I met in a computer science class. He'd scribble algorithms on napkins at coffee shops, his excitement infectious. Together we'd spend hours in the lab, debugging code and dreaming of building something big. They saw me not as the spare, but as Abigail, the girl with ideas. My parents, though, they never visited. When I called to share I'd made the dean's list, Mom said, "That's nice," before gushing about Natalie's cheerleading award. My graduation day was the sharpest cut. I walked across the stage, diploma in hand, scanning the crowd for them. Empty seats stared back. They'd gone to Natalie's regional dance competition instead, texting me a half-hearted "congrats" later. Ethan and Claire were there, cheering loud enough to fill the void. That day, I realized family wasn't blood. It was the people who showed up. My coding skills sharpened under professors who pushed me to think bigger, to see tech as a way to solve real problems. Ethan introduced me to cybersecurity, a field where trust was everything. Ironic, given my family's betrayal. I soaked it up, learning to protect data the way I wish someone had protected me. Margaret's lessons about grit and numbers echoed in my mind, guiding me through late-night study sessions. I wasn't just earning a degree. I was building a foundation to prove my parents wrong. Every line of code, every all-nighter, was a step toward a future they couldn't touch. By senior year, I had a vision, a company that would secure people's digital lives. UT gave me the tools, but Claire and Ethan gave me the courage. Their belief in me was a spark, igniting the dream that would become Harpertech. With Margaret's $15,000 inheritance, I took a leap. After graduation, I moved into a cramped Austin apartment, the kind with creaky floors and a leaky faucet, and founded Harpertech. It was just me, a second-hand laptop, and a stubborn belief that I could build something meaningful. Claire helped with branding, sketching logos on takeout containers, while Ethan offered coding tips over cheap tacos. That $15,000 covered a basic server, some software licenses, and enough ramen to survive. My goal was simple but ambitious. Create a cybersecurity platform to protect small businesses from data breaches. I spent months coding in that tiny apartment, the hum of my laptop my only company. Sleep was optional. Doubt was constant. I'd stare at my screen, remembering my mother's sneer, and push harder. The first launch was a disaster. I'd built a prototype to pitch to local retailers, but a bug crashed it mid-demo. The client, a bookstore owner, walked out, muttering about unreliable tech. I cried that night, alone on my thrift store couch, feeling like the failure my parents always saw. But Margaret's voice rang in my head. Grit's what gets you through. I debugged the code, line by painful line, and rebuilt. Ethan stayed up with me, testing patches over video calls. Claire brought coffee and reminded me why I started. By the next month I had a stable version. I cold-called businesses, pitched to anyone who'd listen, and landed a small coffee shop as my first client. They loved how HarperTech's software protected their customer data without breaking the bank. That one win fueled me. I worked 16-hour days, teaching myself marketing, refining the platform, and saving every penny to hire a part-time developer. Slowly, HarperTech grew, one client, then 3, then 10. Each success was a brick in the wall I was building, not just to shield myself, but to prove I was more than the spare. My parents never asked about my work. When I mentioned HarperTech at a rare family dinner, Mom rolled her eyes. That internet stuff's a fad, she said. I didn't argue. I just kept coding, determined to make my dream undeniable. Everything changed when I met Susan Hayes, a tech mentor who ran a startup incubator in Austin. Claire dragged me to one of Susan's workshops, where her sharp wit and no-nonsense advice cut through my self-doubt. You've got something special, Susan told me after I showed her HarperTech's demo. But you need to pitch bigger. She pushed me to present at a Houston Tech Summit, a high-stakes event packed with investors and CEOs. I was terrified. Public speaking wasn't my strength, but Susan coached me, drilling me on every detail. The night before, I barely slept, haunted by the fear of failing in front of a room full of strangers. At the summit, I took the stage, my hands sweaty, and started my pitch. Halfway through, a glitch froze the demo. The screen went blank, and the audience shifted awkwardly. My heart sank, but I heard Margaret's voice. Trust your own math. I switched to explaining the code verbally, walking them through how HarperTech protected data. The room leaned in, intrigued. I finished to applause, my knees shaking. Afterward, a barbecue chain owner approached me. I like your hustle, he said. We need your software. That contract was HarperTech's turning point, bringing in enough revenue to hire a small team. Susan's mentorship didn't just land me a client. It taught me to trust my resilience. That glitch could have broken me, but instead, it proved I could think on my feet. I was building something real, something my parents couldn't dismiss, no matter how hard they tried. HarperTech grew faster than I dreamed. By 27, I had a team of 12, an office in downtown Austin, and clients across Texas. We secured data for restaurants, retailers, even a local bank. The platform I'd built from a tiny apartment was now a name in cybersecurity, featured in tech blogs and industry panels. I'd lie awake some nights, stunned by how far I'd come. But my parents, they never saw it. When I visited Houston for a cousin's wedding, I mentioned HarperTech's latest milestone, a contract with a regional hospital chain. Diane scoffed, cutting me off. That internet stuff's a fad. You should get a real job like Natalie's teaching. Natalie, with her stable but unremarkable career, was still their pride. My success, my millions in revenue, meant nothing to them. It stung, but it also clarified something. Their rejection wasn't about me. It was about their inability to see beyond their own small world. I didn't need their approval anymore. Margaret had taught me to shine, and I did, brighter than they could handle. Every client, every contract was a vow kept to myself, to build a life so undeniable they'd have to face it. When HarperTech sold for $4.7 million, I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd see me. Instead, they sued me, claiming I owed them for raising me. That betrayal only fueled my fire. I wasn't building an empire for them. I was building it for the girl who walked away from that kitchen table, keys in hand, determined to prove she was enough. On my 34th birthday, I was in my Austin condo, the skyline sparkling like a promise I'd kept to myself. HarperTech's $4.7 million sale was still fresh, a testament to years of grinding, coding, and proving I was more than the spare. I expected calls, maybe a card from my parents, Diane and Robert, acknowledging my success. Instead, a courier knocked with a certified letter, its weight heavy in my hands. I opened it, expecting legal documents or maybe a late congratulations. What I read stole my breath. Diane and Robert had disinherited me. The letter was cold, formal, typed on crisp letterhead, as if I were a business associate, not their daughter. Abigail's success is luck, not merit, it stated, dismissing my sleepless nights, my sacrifices, my empire built from a $15,000 inheritance and sheer will. They claimed Natalie, my sister, deserved their estate because she remained loyal. Loyal to what? Their favoritism. Their small, bitter world. The closing line gutted me. Regards, Diane and Robert Carter. Regards. As if I were a stranger, not the child they'd raised, the one they'd thrown out at 18 with a snarled, "Get out. Don't bother coming back." I sat on my couch, the letter trembling in my hands, rereading those words. Luck. The word was a blade, cutting through every achievement I'd clawed for. I'd built HarperTech from a cramped apartment, outsmarted glitches, won clients, and sold a company for millions. Luck didn't write code at 3 a.m. Luck didn't face down investors or rebuild after failure. But to them I was nothing, a fluke, an afterthought. I wanted to scream, to call them and demand why. Why, after all these years, they still couldn't see me. Instead, I traced the edges of the letter, their signatures staring back like a final rejection. Diane's sharp cursive, Robert's unsteady scrawl. They'd both signed it, both agreed to erase me. I thought of Grandma Margaret, who'd told me, "Your light scares people who live in the dark." This letter was their attempt to dim me, to rewrite my story as something small. But I wasn't that 18-year-old girl anymore, shaking as I grabbed my keys and left their house. I was Abigail Harper, who'd built an empire from nothing. Still, the pain was raw, a wound reopened. Their words echoed that night at the kitchen table, but this time they'd put it in writing, sealed it with their names, and sent it to break me on my birthday. It wasn't just disinheritance. It was a declaration that I'd never been enough. The letter wasn't the only betrayal. Months later, I learned the truth about my father, Robert. He'd been diagnosed with lung cancer a year before, and Diane never told me. I wasn't even told he was dying. I found out through a cousin's text, a casual "sorry about your dad," that hit like a freight train. I called Diane, my voice shaking, demanding answers. "You didn't need to know," she said coldly. "You're not part of this family." Not part of this family. The words burned worse than the letter. Robert had been sick, fading, and they'd kept me in the dark, robbing me of any chance to say goodbye. I'd always thought Dad was complicit but softer than Mom. His silence a weakness rather than malice. Now I wondered if I'd misread him. Had he wanted me there? Or had Diane's control consumed him too? I drove to Houston, desperate for answers, but Diane refused to see me. "You've done enough damage," she said through a cracked door before slamming it shut. I stood on their porch, the same one I'd fled at 18, feeling like that girl again. Unwanted, unseen. The cancer had spread fast, my cousin said later. Robert was gone within months, and I'd missed his final days, his final words. Diane's secrecy wasn't just neglect. It was erasure, a deliberate choice to exclude me from his life, even at the end. The grief was heavy, tangled with anger and questions I'd never answer. Had Dad fought for me? Or had he signed that letter willingly, agreeing I was nothing but luck? The not knowing was its own kind of pain, a wound Diane had calculated to inflict. Robert's funeral was a cold, gray affair in Houston, the church packed with faces I barely recognized. I stood in the back, clutching Margaret's locket, feeling like an intruder. Natalie was there, front row, her husband Mark at her side. She played the grieving daughter perfectly, tears streaming, while Diane leaned on her like she was the only child they'd ever had. I approached after the service, hoping for a moment of shared loss. Mark stepped forward, his voice low and threatening. "Stay away," he said. "You don't belong here." Before I could respond, Natalie turned, her eyes hard, and whispered, "You're not family." The words landed like a slap, sharper than Diane's letter, colder than her secrecy. My sister, the golden child I'd grown up envying, had fully embraced their narrative. I wasn't their sister, their daughter, just a stranger who dared to succeed without their approval. The mourners parted as I walked out, their whispers trailing me. I didn't cry until I was in my car, the locket warm against my chest. Natalie's words echoed Diane's, a chorus of rejection that tried to erase me entirely. But standing there in the shadow of my father's death, I realized they couldn't take what I'd built. My strength, my company, my truth. They'd tried to write me out, but I was still here. That letter, Diane's secrecy, Natalie's venom, they were all attempts to erase me, to make me small again. But I wasn't small. I held Margaret's locket, the one with our photo from her diner days, and felt her words anchor me. "You're made of the same stuff as stars." I'd spent years building Harpertech, turning pain into power, rejection into resilience. Their disinheritance wasn't about money. It was about control, about punishing me for shining too brightly. Sitting in my condo, I grappled with the weight of their betrayal. They'd taken my father's final days, my sister's loyalty, my place in their story. But they couldn't take my worth. I thought of Margaret's porch, the Galveston waves, the journal where I'd written my dreams. That girl who'd driven away from their house at 18, keys shaking in her hand, had become a woman who'd sold a company for millions. Their letter called it luck, but I knew better. It was grit, sacrifice, and the belief Margaret instilled in me. If you've ever been cast out, told you're not enough, know this. Your light is yours to protect. They can try to dim it, but they can't extinguish it. I wore that locket every day, a reminder of the one who believed in me when my family didn't. Their betrayal hurt, but it also freed me to write my own story, one where I was enough. The certified letter that disinherited me on my 34th birthday was a wound, but what came next turned my family into predators. After Harpertech sold for $4.7 million, I thought the worst was behind me. I was wrong. Diane, my mother, Natalie, my sister, and her husband Mark didn't just want to erase me. They wanted a piece of what I'd built. They hired a lawyer and filed a lawsuit, demanding a third of the sale, claiming I'd made a verbal contract to repay them for raising me. The claim was laughable, but it hit like a punch. A verbal contract. For what? The years of neglect, the thrift store clothes, the empty bleachers at my soccer games. I sat in my Austin condo, the legal papers spread across my coffee table, their accusations glaring up at me. They said I'd promised to support the family once I succeeded, that my success was theirs to claim because they'd given me a roof until I was 18. Roof. That was their justification. Never mind that they'd thrown me out, Diane snarling. "Get out. Don't bother coming back," as I grabbed my keys and left. Never mind that they'd dismissed Harpertech as a fad, scoffed at my coding and called my achievements luck. Now they saw dollar signs and wanted a cut. I called my lawyer, Thomas Reed, my voice steady despite the rage bubbling inside. They get nothing, I told him. Not a cent. Thomas, a sharp-eyed attorney with a knack for cutting through nonsense, agreed. This is greed dressed up as entitlement, he said. We'll bury it. Their lawsuit wasn't just about money. It was an attempt to rewrite my story, to make my success a debt I owed them. I thought of Grandma Margaret, her words about grit and light echoing in my mind. She taught me to trust my own math, and my math said I'd built HarperTech alone. Every line of code, every sleepless night, every client won. Diane, Natalie, and Mark hadn't lifted a finger. They'd chosen Natalie's dance recitals over my milestones, praised her B+s while ignoring my A's. Now they claimed I owed them for their neglect. The audacity burned. I wasn't that 18-year-old girl anymore, trembling as I drove away from their house. I was Abigail Harper, and I'd fight to protect what was mine. Their lawsuit was a predator's move, but I wasn't prey. I'd built an empire from nothing, and I'd defend it with everything I had. Their greed took a darker turn when Diane forged a letter, supposedly from my father, Robert, who'd died months before. The letter claimed I'd promised to repay them for family expenses when I was 16, a lie so blatant it would have been laughable if it weren't so cruel. It arrived during discovery, typed but signed with Robert's name in a shaky scrawl that didn't match his handwriting. I stared at it, my stomach twisting. Robert was gone, his cancer kept secret from me by Diane, and now she was using his name to steal from me again. Thomas called it what it was: fraud. This is desperation, he said, comparing the signature to Robert's real one from old documents. The forgery was sloppy, rushed, as if Diane thought I wouldn't fight back. In court prep, we dug deeper. My cousin, who'd stayed neutral, confirmed Diane had access to Robert's old files and had bragged about fixing things to get what she deserved. The letter was a lie, but it was more than that. It was Diane dragging my father's memory into her scheme, tainting the little I had left of him. I remembered his silence when Diane threw me out, his absence at my graduation, but I also remembered his softer moments, the rare times he'd smiled at me. Using him like this felt like a second betrayal, a violation of whatever good we'd had. Thomas assured me the forgery would collapse their case, but the pain of it lingered. Diane wasn't just coming for my money. She was rewriting my past, using my dead father's name to do it. Thomas Reed built our case like a fortress, brick by brick, using my records to dismantle their lies. I'd kept everything: bank statements, emails, even the journal Margaret gave me where I'd logged my early HarperTech days. Those records proved I'd funded the company with her $15,000 inheritance, not a dime from Diane or Robert. Thomas uncovered more. Diane and Natalie had a history of extortion attempts, small but telling. Years ago, they'd pressured an aunt for loans that were never repaid, citing family loyalty. They'd tried the same with a cousin who'd started a business, guilting him until he cut contact. Their lawsuit against me was just the latest in a pattern of preying on success. Thomas found a paper trail of their spending: Natalie's lavish wedding, paid for while I was scraping by at UT, and Diane's new car, bought around the time they disinherited me. It painted a picture of envy and entitlement. My records, though, told my truth. Every contract, every client, every milestone earned through my own grit. Thomas used them to build a case that wasn't just defense. It was a declaration of who I was. I wasn't their debtor. I was the daughter they'd cast aside, who'd built something they couldn't touch. The process was grueling, each deposition a reminder of their betrayal, but it also clarified my strength. Margaret's voice echoed, "Numbers don't lie. My numbers, my truth would protect me." The courtroom was stark, fluorescent lights buzzing as the judge read the verdict. Diane, Natalie, and Mark sat across the room, their faces tight with expectation. I sat beside Thomas, clutching Margaret's locket, my heart steady but heavy. The judge dismissed their case with prejudice, calling their claims baseless, and the forged letter a clear attempt to deceive. He looked at me, his voice firm but kind. "Ms. Harper, your achievements are your own. No one can claim them." I exhaled, relief flooding me like Austin sunlight breaking through clouds. Diane's face crumpled, Natalie stared at the floor, and Mark's jaw clenched, but I felt no victory, only freedom. I walked out of the courthouse, the Texas heat wrapping around me, and stood on the steps, breathing deeply. The lawsuit, their lies, their greed, it was over. They tried to make me small again, to chain me to their narrative of debt and luck. But I'd fought back with the truth. Harper Tech was mine, built from Margaret's belief and my own resilience. I thought of that night at 18, keys in my hand, leaving their house after Diane's cruel words. I'd been scared then, but I wasn't now. I'd faced their predation and won. As I stepped into Austin's sunlight, free at last, I knew this wasn't revenge, it was justice. My story, my light was mine to keep. If you've ever had to fight for what's yours, know you're not alone. Share your story. Let's build a community that stands tall against those who try to tear us down. After the lawsuit, I was free, but the scars of my family's betrayal lingered. Therapy with Dr. Elizabeth Monroe became my lifeline. In her quiet Austin office, I unraveled the pain of Diane's rejection, Robert's silence, and Natalie's cruelty. "You're mourning the love you never had," Dr. Monroe said, her voice gentle but firm. "But you can build your own family." I grieved the mother who called me the spare, the father who let me go, the sister who whispered, "You're not family." Each session peeled back layers of hurt, revealing the strength beneath. I learned to redefine family, not as blood, but as chosen bonds of trust and care. Claire, Ethan, my HarperTech team, they were my family now, showing up when my parents never did. Dr. Monroe helped me see that my worth wasn't tied to Diane's approval or the certified letter that tried to erase me. I mourned the love I'd chased, but in its place, I found my own, fierce, self-given, unshakable. Margaret's words echoed, "Your light scares people who live in the dark." Therapy taught me to protect that light, to let go of their narrative and write my own. I wasn't the girl who fled the kitchen table at 18, keys shaking. I was Abigail Harper, whole and enough. A year after the lawsuit, I met Natalie at a Houston diner, the kind Grandma Margaret would have loved. She reached out, claiming she wanted to talk. I agreed but set boundaries. No excuses, no lies. Over coffee, Natalie looked worn. Her golden child glow dimmed by Diane's ongoing bitterness. She didn't apologize for the lawsuit or her words at Dad's funeral, but I didn't expect her to. Instead, I offered trust funds for her kids, a gesture not of forgiveness, but of closure. "This is for them, not you," I said. "They deserve a chance to write their own stories." She nodded, eyes down, and I felt a weight lift. Not reconciliation, just a step toward peace. I'd spent years fighting to be seen. Now I was choosing who deserved my energy. Margaret's locket, warm against my chest, reminded me to keep moving forward, not back. The Margaret Hayes Foundation became my legacy, honoring the woman who believed in me when no one else did. Launched with HarperTech as profits, it empowers Texas women, single mothers, young entrepreneurs, dreamers like I was, with scholarships, mentorship, and grit. Every grant carries Margaret's spirit, her diner wisdom. Trust your own math. I see her in every woman we lift, their lights shining brighter than any darkness. If you've ever had to heal from betrayal, know you can build a legacy stronger than the pain. Share your story. Let's keep Margaret's light alive. I'm Abigail Harper, standing tall in Austin, my chosen home. My story isn't about revenge. It's about rising above. Diane's words at that kitchen table, "Get out. Don't bother coming back," tried to break me. The disinheritance, the lawsuit, Natalie's betrayal, they all tried to dim my light. But I found family in Susan, my mentor, who pushed me to pitch HarperTech boldly. In Thomas, my lawyer, who fought for my truth. In my mentor at the Margaret Hayes Foundation, who carry Grandma Margaret's grit. They're my chosen family, not bound by blood but by belief, showing up when my parents turned away. I built a $4.7 million empire from a $15,000 inheritance and a heart full of resolve. My story's not about tearing others down, it's about building myself up, brick by brick, code by code. Margaret taught me to trust my own math, and that math says I'm enough. If betrayals left you scarred, know you can rebuild too. Your light is yours to protect, no matter who tries to steal it. I'm here, thriving because I chose to rise, not curse the dark. You can too, your story matters. Picture Houston's bayous, steady and deep, or Austin's fireflies, flickering against the night. That's us. Texas strong, unyielding. Betrayal doesn't define us. Our resilience does. We're forged in heat, rooted in this vast land, where scars become strength. Your story, like mine, can light up the dark. Share your betrayal story below. How did you rebuild? What kept you going? Subscribe, share, and join our Texas Strong community under these wide skies. Let's lift each other up, proving we're more than the pain we've faced. Your next chapter starts now. Write it with courage.